Hi, this is Frank Olhurst with Peerlyst. Today we have a very interesting guest on Peerlyst TV that's going to talk about the stewardship of databases, something that a lot of security professionals forget about. Please welcome Steve Hunt from DB Networks, and he's going to take us through why stewardship is so important for security.
Well, thanks. So when you look at the data available on a network, particularly the data stored in your databases, from the time the data is created to the time it finally is retired is important to understand the security profile, the ownership, and the purpose of that data. So many organizations, although they have some sense of what data exists in their environment, often do not know the details. You can't place a security policy or a set of security procedures in place on databases if you haven't first identified them. So when you talk about data stewardship, it starts with identifying each and every database, who's using the database, what its business purpose is, what the sensitivity of the data within that database is, what its retention policy is, and what will be done with it when its retention period is over. So once you've established that and you verified that it covers each and every database within the system, you need to be able to go through that and monitor the life cycle of that to ensure that the policies and procedures are effectively being enforced by watching how the database is used, who's using it, and how it's operating.
So you can run into quite a bit of a big problem in an enterprise because of rogue databases and whatnot. And today it seems like every application out there, through its installation wizard says, hey, let's create a database. And a lot of times that's done without IT knowing. Now, I gather that creates problems.
It does, and it's not just the applications that generate it, it's users who think that they're doing something innocuous, a development community who needs a database that sort of looks like production, so they spin them up. Maybe they get a little data from the production environment, so they've got real-looking data and did or didn't properly mask it, and now it's outside the purview of the security organization because it wasn't created through the normal process. It was created through some application generation process or some development process. And so without any tool to go identify what databases actually exist and then bounce that against the current known CMDB database of data assets, then you have no way of controlling it. Moreover, one of the often overlooked things is when a database eventually becomes quiescent, when people stop using it, and that data just winds up sitting there. Typically, we understand things that are in use. We don't understand things that stop being used. And now the database, because no one is using it, no one's paying attention to it, the security profile tends to age over time. It's no longer being patched. It's not up to date with advanced credential rules or multi-factor authentication. And now you've got potentially sensitive data sitting there becoming an increasing risk over time. So when you talk about data stewardship, it is literally from inception to retirement, and it has to include all those elements of the life cycle.
So, today's security professionals should be using some sort of tool to discover databases, and not only that, make sure that there's policies in place that databases are managed, because what seems to be happening is that, we get these databases out there for either, a given project or something like that, or even a big data type mining project, and then those databases get forgotten and they kind of just sit out there on the network and they become a target.
Absolutely. And in fact, it's not only important to understand what databases you have, but who's interacting with them. And you can put up a database and you've got, perfect security for the database when you initially install it, but someone loans their credential out. Now that credential is used by a different workstation. That workstation may have a completely different security profile, and in fact, it may be in a completely different zone that has different security policies associated with who else can be listening on the network, etc. So tracking the usage of that database ensures that insider threats, APTs that may have taken over a desktop, or even external threats coming in through applications that use SQL and are subject to SQL injection attacks, etc., are all monitored on an ongoing basis to ensure the data stays where the data was intended to be.
So it all comes down to, you have to know what you have to be able to protect it.
Absolutely. If you don't know where it is, what it is, and how it's being used, there's no way you can ensure that it's complying with a rule.
Great, great. Well, we're about out of time. I want to thank you for your insights, and I'm sure our audience will take that to heart and start thinking about databases as one of the problems with security. Thank you.
Thank you.